Hello, hello, hello. Good evening, everybody. Again, we're here on another Wednesday bringing you some amazing professional learning. And I am over here with my friend Christina, also known as Super Señora. And we are super ready and super pumped to talk about something that is super important and necessary. And it's something that I know that as a teacher, I struggle with for a couple of years, more years than I'd like to admit, which is making sure my students stay in the target language for most of the time. And I know that is a topic that interests everybody. So I'm really excited that we're going to get to discuss ideas, and Christina is going to share 3 strategies, not to be super overwhelming, and you know, so that you're going to be able to apply in your classroom. And we, of course, are going to do our best to answer as many questions as possible. And if we can get to all of them, we'll get to them in writing somehow. So thank you so much for being here tonight. I'm going to tell you about myself because I know each week we have new members. My name is Berta Delgadillo, and I am a Spanish teacher in beautiful Savannah, Georgia. I teach high school students, and I teach Spanish 2, 3, AP. I've taught Spanish 1 also, and I've taught middle school for 2 years. God bless you, middle school teachers. I love middle school, but just high school is where my heart is. And without further ado, I'm going to go ahead and turn it over to Christina and let her tell you a little bit about herself, all the way from Long Island, New York. We are connecting tonight to bring you this wonderful session. Christina.
Hi, thank you so much for having me. I'm so excited to be here to talk about something that I really am passionate about and I enjoy, which is, as you mentioned, getting students to use the target language in class. So my name is Christina Majori. I am a high school Spanish teacher from Long Island, New York. I've been teaching secondary Spanish since 2009. And in that time, I've pretty much taught every level, 7 through 12, everything from remedial Spanish level 1 through IB year 2. Currently, last year I just finished up with my IB juniors, 4 conversation class, which is an awesome class, perfect for what we're going to talk about, getting kids to talk in Spanish, and level 2. But next year I'll have seniors and juniors again. So it's a little mix of everything, which is great. It keeps it interesting. And as Berta said, I am online as Super Señora, so hopefully we are connecting on Instagram, or if you have a chance, I do have a blog, superseñora.com, and I just love to connect professionally. I'm fortunate that I get to speak with people like Berta all the time. We get to share ideas, even though we're not in person, we still get to connect and chat. So I'm really excited to be here, and thank you so much for having me.
I know, Christina, that's like the beauty of the internet and the fact that we're connected. We have Dee from South Carolina. We have Evie from Florida. We have Norma. Norma, I forgot where you were at, Norma. I know, like, we know each other. We're like super friends, but I forgot which state because I know you said you were moving. And we have Claudia from Kentucky and also Claudia from Florida.
And Lisa from Nebraska.
And Lisa from Nebraska. So we are from everywhere. So, and Joshua in Boston.
Hi, Joshua. You actually came to my school 2 years ago, so it's nice to see you on here again. You visited our school. Small world, right?
Yep.
Okay, so do you want to get started?
Yep, we'll go ahead and get started.
Great. So today we're going to chat about, as we said, leading learners to stay in the target language because, as we all know, that's the challenge, right? We're doing a lot of the work, and we want to hear them give us that language back, that output. So I want to share with you 3 strategies, and I'm going to try to give you some ideas too to modify them for next year, because like in New York, we have no idea what's going on for next year. We don't know if we're going to be blended, if we're going to be in person, if we're going to be virtual. So at this time, I'm trying my best to prepare a couple of things that can work in whatever situation, and we'll just take it from there. So hopefully you find something that works for whatever situation we find ourselves in next year. So first strategy is start your class off right. So you want to make sure right out of the gate in the beginning of the year, you want to set your expectations for your class. So you want to be upfront with them. You want to be upfront with the parents, and you have to share with them what you expect. So here I just have a little snippet from my class syllabus. And as we all know, we give the syllabus out, they read it, right? So we want to make sure we highlight this and we share with them and we say, look, this is how the class is going to run. This is how, my style is, and this is what I'm expecting of you. So for digitally, for next year, for virtual teaching, it would be great to just make a short video and maybe just share some highlights. You don't have to read the whole syllabus to them, but share the highlights, the important things that you expect from them. Because if in our heads we have this expectation of I'm going to use 90 to 100% target language, my students are going to use 90 to 100% target language, but we don't fill them in on their part, they're never going to meet us there. So we want to be clear up front and say, this is what I expect from you, and this is what we're working towards. Because, day one is not going to be the same as day 180. And then we just have to continue to remind them. This is, think about the internet. We see something 10 times before it sticks in our brain. Teenagers, same thing. They're going to need to hear it, see it, 20 times before it really sinks in. So you want to just kind of continue to remind them. Even if you tell them one time, you're expected to speak Spanish or, answer me en español, it may not stick. So just keep with it, okay? And especially during virtual learning. I mean, last year we had classes 3 times a week, but it was optional. You could do office hours, you could do live teaching, you could do extra help. So there was a lot of disruption for our instruction, and you had to really get on there and remind them all right, this is our time to produce language. You're going to be speaking in Spanish. And you're going to have to keep reminding them because we're not in that setting. So if they're logging onto a computer, you're going to have to start off the class reminding them this is what we're doing, this is what we're expecting.
I think if I may add something real quick,
Please.
Just to chime in on that, something that I've done in the past that's worked great, I did it, and we were not doing remote learning then. I turned my syllabus. My syllabus is actually a PDF, so I put it on a Google form, and I made it I did a scavenger hunt, moving around the room. But that was 2 years ago. So last year, for some reason, I couldn't do the moving around the room scavenger hunt. I don't remember what was the reason behind it, but I did a scavenger hunt on a Google form, if that makes sense. So I posted the syllabus there, and that way I didn't have to read it to them, yet they still had to read it and find elements and key in answers or select the multiple choice. And it worked out very good for the students. And I love your idea about making a video for the parents. I mean, that is pretty amazing. And one thing you can do, you can make the video on a platform. I love Loom. I know that Lisa is gonna hate me for saying I love Loom because I know she's Team Screencast-O-Matic, but I absolutely love Loom because it's free for teachers forever, and you can record a video on Loom, and actually you can see how many people have watched the video, and you can ask the parents to sign with their initials or with their student's name if or their initials to acknowledge that they have seen it or heard it. So that's another idea that we can do for virtual learning.
Yeah, no, I love that idea too. And, especially for the parents, if we don't get to do a back to school night or an open house or whatever, it'll be a nice way to connect with them, because otherwise you're just a name on their child's schedule. So I think that would really also set you apart. Make a short, it doesn't have to be a 20-minute video. It could just be a 2-3 minute introduction, who you are to your class, do something fun, kind of like what you would do at back to school night, just a quick introduction to you, and share with them your expectations, because once they understand it, they're going to actually push their children, I want to hear you practicing your Spanish, because for them, there's nothing better than hearing their child speak the language that they're studying, that they're putting all this time into, so if you get them on your side, that's even more support. So definitely a great idea. And so just to continue on with that, we know that our goal is for 90 to 100% target language, comprehensible input. And that's our goal. Where are we going to hit it all the time? No, but that's the goal. So we want to push ourselves to that, because the more we give them and the more we set the scene for our class, the better, more receptive they're going to be to it. And they're going to start to get in that routine. You have to hold them accountable. They're teenagers, they're going to push back. So expect it. You're very rarely do you have a class where it just that you say something and it just happens. So you want to expect it and be prepared. So you just have to keep continuing to interact with them in the target language. And it's kind of silly to pretend that you don't understand what they're saying in English, but you can just do something like that where you're like, háblame en español, o en español, por favor. And then a lot of times they're going to say, I don't know how to say that in Spanish. I don't know how to say that in Spanish, right? So you have to remind them, well, that's what I'm here for. Let me help you. I'll fill in.
Aren't you in the right class for that?
Right, exactly. Exactly. So, a lot of times they don't feel confident. And, they're teenagers. They don't feel confident with a lot of things to begin with. So now to ask them to participate in the target language, it's even more stressful, high anxiety situation. So this kind of slides right into my next strategy, which is like, we have to just support them, and we have to give them the support that they need, because a lot of times they give us that pushback because they're very quick to say, I don't know how to say that. That's the defense. I don't know how to say that. I don't know. I can't do it, because that's the easy out. Oh, she'll stop talking to me. Now she'll stop. Now she'll stop. I can hide, right? But you can't give up on them. You have to say, well, turn the table a little bit. I'm here to help you. Let me help you. You start and I'll fill in the words that you need. And I try to, keep it like that. I'm your ally. I'm not against you. I'm not here to embarrass you and say, oh, they can't speak Spanish. I want to see you speak Spanish, and I want to see you succeed. So that kind of goes right into the next strategy, which is classroom support. Students revert back to English because they don't feel confident, right? So what can we give them to boost their confidence? Now, this is totally going to depend on your personal situation. So if things were back to normal, everybody still has a different situation. I know in my school, we share classrooms. I'm in 2 to 3 different classrooms with multiple disciplines. So it's very hard to set up a huge word wall, or it's very hard to put things up on the walls just because I'm simply in too many rooms. I could have, my 3 IB classes and one in a different classroom. So it's hard to put my stuff on the wall. So what I do is I use a reference sheet, something that I can make. I usually fill it in. This is an example on the slide. I fill it in about halfway, a little more than halfway, and I leave room. And as the year goes on, we add to it. And they have that. I always photocopy it on a nice bright blue or green type paper. So I can say let's pull out your blue paper, and they can easily find it in their binder. And this immediately eases the anxiety, because it's a little bit of a safety net. It's that floaty in the pool that they can lean on, and they don't feel like, oh my gosh, it's all on me. They have some support. They have a place to start. And that's what a lot of kids need. They need a place to start. And then we can kind of fill in the rest. So by giving them something like this, or a word wall, or having an anchor chart, something they can easily look at and easily reference, it's going to immediately help and support them.
I totally echo what you said. I know I talked about this a lot with my other fabulous friend, Claudia, and we always talk about lowering the affective filter and making sure that affective filter is low so that learning can take place. Well, the acquisition can take place. And I know that she used to think, and I used to think at the beginning, well, why would I have all those phrases around the wall? First of all, to make the language comprehensible, but also to enable the students to write. Because like you mentioned, sometimes the hardest thing for the student is to get started. Once you have them on that first step, they can usually elaborate. And if you give them useful expressions or supporting structures, you will be amazed with what they can produce. And also, I don't know if you're going to talk about this later, Christina, you can totally cut me off. It's okay. But I really have heard many people voice their concern, especially with remote learning, how students, they didn't want to give presentational writing assessments because students were cheating. But I can guarantee you two things. If you two things that might work and might lessen that the incidence of cheating online. Number one, make sure you acknowledge if a student is cheating, or if a student is using Google Translate or whatnot. Address that with the student, not in a shameful way, but just tell the student, reach out to the student and say, hey, I know that this isn't your work, but I want to give you a chance to try it, and here are some supporting structures so that you can actually get it done, and I am available to help you. You and I can do a one-on-one, and we can build it together. And you give that student that mentorship one time. Number one, it's going to mean a lot for that specific student, and number two, you're going to be able to show that student that they can actually get it done. And then next time they're going to try. And when we give the students those supporting elements, like I said, they would not only surprise us, but you're going to see, normally when a student decides to opt for Google Translate, it's because they either haven't acquired and they don't feel confident with using those structures, or they haven't had enough support. I have not given them enough support. So my recommendation, number one, for avoiding those incidents is to acknowledge, let the student know that that that's happening, and give them a second chance, give them grace. And then the second part would be to find or develop what Christina has right now as expresiones útiles, supporting structures, provide that for the student and see how far they can take it.
100% agree. And, a lot of the times we're so quick to be like, Google Translate, that's it, it's a 0. But really, what's the lesson learned, right? By taking that time and saying like, hey, I see that you use Google Translate. If you need a little bit of help, let me point you in the right direction. Or how can I support you? What do you need? Or, hey, have you seen wordreference.com? And I always make it a point with like a wordreference.com to pull it up and be like, look at this. Look at how it defines the word and shows me how it's used in different contexts, where Google doesn't really do that. So you try to make it a positive thing, and exactly like you said, keep that relationship, because you don't want to burn the bridge right away. And that's exactly perfect transition to what I was going to say here. Do I have it here?
Yes. I want to highlight, if that's okay, Christina, I want to highlight 2 comments that just popped in the feed.
Yeah.
So Lisa, our good friend Lisa, is saying that she loves, doing that and helping students express themselves. They always feel so proud and encouraged after we figured it out. And then Evie is saying something that we know is so important and key, and I cannot stress it enough. And sometimes when I go present, I feel bad that I'm talking about relationships again, but it is just so important to create those positive relationships with students inside our classes, because like you said, you want to show them that you are actually on their team, and we want to push them, but we want to, encourage them in the way that it's like, I don't know, with so much kindness and with so much love.
Our role is to support, right? Our role is not to just say, this is what's right, this is what's wrong. We're there to support their language journey, whatever that may look like. So it's so important to keep it positive, because once a kid shuts down, your job becomes 10 times harder to get them back on your side and to get them into the target language, because now, they feel uncomfortable and they feel that tension. So it's super important to stay positive, to be encouraging, and, just point them in the right direction. A lot of times they use Google Translate because they don't know any better. That's the easy, quick fix that everybody does. Type a sentence into Google Translate. Here's my answer. It's easy. It's done. I know that it works in their mind, right? So we just have to support them and teach them a better way to get to their end goal, and say like, look, you don't have to directly translate every single word you want to say in English. Start to think in the language that you know. Use the language that you know to produce a thought. You know, you don't want to say, if they want to say, you know, they forget a word, like when we teach circumlocution, it's the same thing. They have to be able to use the words that they know to get their point across. And the more that we can teach them to do that, the better that the experience is going to be for everyone. So I do talk about virtual classroom and how we can set that up, but just, you know, for whatever we go back into, it is important also to think about classroom design, because when we start our year, you know, if you're in those traditional rows, it's really hard to facilitate conversation. I mean, think about when you were a student in college, or if you've ever been to a conference and you're sitting in rows, it really is not conducive to a conversation. You're separated. If you want to talk to the person next to you, you feel like you're interrupting the presenter because you have to, you know, lean over or move your desk or whatever. So if you can, in the beginning of the year, try to set up something that will work for you. And from my own experience, it really comes with trial and error. You're going to have to try a little bit of everything. Certain classes might not work in the same setup. Like one year I taught remedial Spanish, and then right after that I had my IB Spanish class. Two totally different ends of the spectrum. I had to shift the seating a little bit, or I had the kids sit in a different arrangement just because it didn't work. The same seating arrangement didn't work. But anything that facilitates conversation, having them sit in pairs, having them sit in small groups of 4. If you could do, like, if you're doing deskless and sitting in a circle, just sometimes, even if you don't do that all the time, just getting up and sitting in a circle changes the environment and it makes it more conversational and more comfortable. So you want to just be thoughtful with those decisions, because that's going to set you up for success. And it's also going to make your class run a lot smoother. You know, if you want to do a lot of communicative or collaborative activities where it's, hey, let's talk to someone near you, and they're in rows, everybody has to move. Everybody's got to put the desk back. It takes up a lot of time. So, you know, just be purposeful, be thoughtful with your classroom design, and you have to do what works for you. So
absolutely. And I was gonna address something, but Inmaculada just beat me to it. So I'm gonna address 2 things real quick. First, I want to highlight this comment that I think it was beautifully worded. It says, I agree, we need to make sure we show them respect and not demean them to help them through difficult situations or actions, such as, you know, academic dishonesty, back to what we were talking about earlier. But thank you so much for that insight. And then what I was saying about the comment I was going to make, Christina, but Immaculada kind of wrote it over here. She says, in a COVID-19 environment, we do not have the flexibility to set up the class. And we are very much aware of that. We are very much aware that, you know, that's not going to happen when we go back to school. And I know personally for me, going back to school is going to be virtual. And I know, Christina, you're still waiting to hear on your end, right?
Yeah, we don't know. We're not going to know probably. We don't go back in New York until Labor Day. So we just started summer. You guys have been on summer for a month. We just started. So we've got
mine is supposed to be over on the 28-ish. So,
but I'm still waiting.
But absolutely. And but the way we are talking about this right now is because, you know, eventually we are hoping to be back in the classroom, and we know we're going to be having some restrictions, but, you know, these are some elements that we can tweak, maybe not to fit, you know, the scenarios we're going to have to meet, but, you know, it's useful information, and we can still, depending on what the criteria is going to be for how many students are going to be able to be in one room, you know, these are some principles that are going to be useful in the future.
Totally. And it's so hard, like right now, with so many unknowns, to say, you know, this is the best way to do it, because everyone's school situation is different. I mean, district to district, like even in New York, neighboring districts, everybody's doing things differently. So my hope when creating this was, I know that we're going into a crazy, unknown school year, unprecedented. Hopefully we'll never have to do anything like this again. But I do want to give you some things that maybe the following year, or when things do get back to more of a normal setting, that you can walk away with, because I didn't want to just give you like, here's just for the COVID situation, and then you don't have it. So I actually did think a little bit about this. So let's say you have a restricted movement class, because hopefully eventually if we do blended learning, A day, B day, something like, you know, whatever it's going to look like, you can still position the students just so even that they're looking at each other. With rows, the struggle is you really can't see more than a couple of, one or two people around you. If somebody on the other end of the room is talking, you can't see them. That doesn't facilitate conversation. The kid who can't see is now looking at his phone because it has nothing to do with him. So if you can really try to make it, even if it has to be spread out, some kind of, maybe a horseshoe would work, maybe a really large circle, if you've ever done the runway where it's 2 rows that face each other and you just spread the kids out. But at least these types of situations kind of support conversation, because that's what we're looking for. We want kids to be able to see each other, to read, the cues, smiling, nodding, laughing, or, looking confused. You want them to be able to see each other because that will facilitate conversation. So whatever that may look like next year, these are just some ideas. Again, who knows what we're going into. And I think it also depends. It's so individual. Like if you have a huge classroom, you have a lot of room to play with. If you're in a tiny, like if you got a trailer or something that's super small, you don't have the room to play.
I have a huge classroom. Actually, I have 2 classrooms that are put together. And on one side, I have my deskless setting. And on my other side, I have desk. Not because I wanted it that way. I used to have computers, but I no longer have them. So if I had to go back to school, to the actual building, I would be able to spread my students, and it would be, 6 feet apart. But, that's not going to be the case. But yes, it depends on people's situations, really.
And
but I'm so glad you brought up, these 2 points. And somebody, I think it was Madeline, who had asked me, or I might be incorrect, Madeline, and forgive me if I have, but I think it was you who asked me about deskless setting. And, I thought about doing a presentation on deskless, and I had one ready, but I just did not want to do it at this point because right now we have we have the pandemic, and we are probably not going to be going back to school. And even if I bring the presentation, it's not going to be as relevant at this moment for the way we want it to work. I also want to highlight Joshua's comment. He says, when we know the language output that is appropriate for the student's proficiency level, we can create assignments that students can confidently do. I totally am on board with that. If we ask them to do something that is too far, that means we notice that the students are kind of not getting it, then about their level, they go to the translator. That goes back to what we were saying earlier. Usually we know that students revert to translating because they don't have enough support, or because maybe we use I+2 as opposed to I+1. So we need to own our role as teachers in this. Absolutely. So if our students are not understanding, maybe we need to definitely need to provide more input and provide more support systems.
Right. And you're like that, for example, the reference sheet that I gave as an example, your reference sheet for your level 1 class is going to look totally different than your reference sheet for your level 4 class. And, you want to be able to give them phrases that are level appropriate and that they're going to be able to use over and over again in appropriate conversation, because that's going to build their confidence, because then they won't have to look at the reference sheet every single time. It'll start to become memorized, normal part of their conversation. Totally agree. Okay. So also we touched a little bit about this virtually, but exactly what we said. They use Google Translate because it's what they know. It's their go-to default. Like, I don't know something, let me look for it. So let's try to cut them off before we get there. What if you start the beginning of the year, and like for me, I use Google Classroom. So here's a picture of a folder that I have in my Google Classroom. It's called Resource Folder. So in there, I put whatever resources that are level appropriate for that class, and that'll be posted to their class on Google Classroom. And that'll be something that they can refer to, and it'll be a growing thing. It won't just be, I put something in there once and then I never touch it again. It'll be something that grows as the year goes on. Because if they have that, if they have what they need in there from you, they're like, oh yeah, it's right in there. And they know exactly where to go. They know exactly what they're looking for. That stops a lot of the just jumping to Google Classroom, to Google Translate. Or some teachers use Padlet, which is great too, to just constantly kind of pin up a bunch of things, resources that students might need to use. So wherever you do decide to do it, whatever your situation is, your learning management system, just find something that is easy for them to access, because the easier it is, if it could be right on the homepage, or if it could be, whatever I don't know what the systems look like Canvas or whatever, but if it could be right on that homepage that they can click and say, oh yeah, that's where it is, it's going to avoid them going to Google Translate all the time. So we want to try to support them in that way. So this goes back to the beginning. We're using purposeful design. So this is my third strategy. So no matter what our classes look like, we have to be thoughtful in the design of our lessons. So you want to always think about, am I giving my students the opportunity to use the language today? And it sounds kind of like silly, but sometimes, we get so focused on what we have to do, like, what do I have to have prepared? What resource? Do I have my video? Do I have my audio? Do I have the reading? All of the input, we have all those things. Sometimes we have to stop and take a step back and say, what opportunities do they have to have a conversation? Or, where in my lesson is it going to be a time for them to use the language? Because we're on such limited time with them in class, in person, to use the language, that sometimes we try to cram it all in, and we forget about it. So routines can help. So if you find something that works for you. So for me, last year with my level 2 classes, every single day we started with a do now. So I had this sheet, and it's very simple. It's literally boxes for days of the week. Next to it, I had a 3, 2, 1. So they would fill it in on the top. I know it's kind of small, but it says today is, in Spanish, obviously it says today is Monday, the blank of blank. So they would fill that in. And then I would put the do now on the board, whatever it is, whether it was, an image, I wanted them to jot down vocabulary, or if it was a question I wanted them to think about. And this kind of gave them a place to start thinking. And that's another thing when we want kids to speak. A lot of times they just need to think for a minute. We want to get through so much in a lesson. We want to get through these 10 questions, but they have to really think, especially kids that are in lower levels. They have to put the puzzle pieces together in their brain and make their comprehensible answer for us. So something like this is nice. And I use the same looking sheet every single week. Easy for me, easy for them. They know what to expect. It was a place for them to kind of center and put their notes and ideas. So that definitely helps. Some kind of routine.
Yeah, I absolutely love that you bring that up, Christina, because today I was telling at a session inside a conference in the cloud, I was telling the audience there that, we receive so many emails from everybody you can think of in education about platforms, about resources, and we're so grateful for those opportunities. But if we already have something that simplifies, a system that is simple, that we can replicate, that works well for the students and works well for us as teachers, and it's going to help us maintain the sanity, we don't have to reinvent the wheel. We don't have to adapt something new unless we feel we're ready for it. And I think, we know if we're ready to learn a new tool and try it out, because I know I'm always trying things out. But during this pandemic, in March and April, at one point, I became very much aware I can't be throwing more systems to my students, because maybe I have them use 3 platforms, 4 platforms, and then the math teacher has them using 4 or 5, and then the science teacher some different. So I love the idea of simplicity and just using the activities that work for them, and continue to use the activities and tasks that are working for the students, and then little by little maybe you can add one without overwhelming yourself as the teacher and also the students.
Yeah, totally. And, just think about yourself as a learner. Like, could you imagine being in a class and the teacher said to you, okay, Berta, today you're going to give us a presentation on, and they pick a random topic and go. And you have no think time to prepare, right? That's going to stress probably 95%. There's like that small margin of people that really do well on the fly, but most people would be stressed out in that situation. We don't want to cause extra stress to them. So something that's a little bit more routine sometimes takes that anxiety off of them, because they know what they're expected to do.
Going back to the importance of lowering the affective filter. and making sure that our students are ready to learn, because not only do we want to lower the affective filter in our classroom atmosphere, but when this pandemic, we do not know what else our students are bringing into the learning environment, even if it's a virtual learning environment. So, having this familiar activities is super helpful for the students.
Definitely. And I see a question, what is the 3-2-1 on the form? So the 3-2-1 is how I would give them a grade for their participation in class that day. I don't use a participation rubric, but this was my way of kind of holding them accountable. Again, this was for level 2 Spanish. So it was great for me because I would just take a highlighter, and at the end of one day or 2 days, I could quickly go through and grade them. And then at the end of the week, I had some kind of participation or class grade or interpersonal grade, depending on whatever we were working on. It just kind of tied it to a little bit of accountability to them, and it kept it really easy and convenient for me. So that was nice too. So a couple of easy ways to integrate speaking into your routines or lessons. So like I said, you could do a do now. You can do an exit ticket, which is more of like a reflection, and it doesn't have to be this in-depth reflection. It could be, what did you like about today? What did you not like about today? What was difficult? What was easy? Those are questions that kids in level 2 can answer. What was difficult? What was easy? And just get some feedback from them. It gives them a chance to talk to one another. Images are great. I love to find like silly images and then have them discuss, because the sillier it is, the more they want to talk about it. Memes, they love memes. So that's always fun to, bring into class. And just things that are thought-provoking, like any type of prompt or any type of question that's a little bit debatable. Like you could just make a statement like, something silly. I don't know, like Justin Bieber is the best singer ever. Just like a really, like, you don't have to believe it, but that it's going to cause
you definitely get a lot of arguments on that one.
Right. So just something thought-provoking, anything like that they're going to, of course, immediately be like, want to, word vomit in English, want to have it come out, but we have to support them with the things. We got to, let's all take a minute. Let's think about it. Give them a minute to think about the words that they want to say, and then start your conversation. So I have a couple of games and things I wanted to share that, I think would be useful. And hopefully we can kind of, integrate these into our virtual, blended, whatever classroom that we have next year. So games are great. They increase engagement, they increase participation. That when you walk in and you say, guys, we're doing a review game or we're doing something, they're immediately excited. So now you've got the buy-in, which is great. Sometimes that's the hardest part, getting them to buy in. So games are a great way to do this. So here are 4 of like my go-to activities or games that get students speaking. So their favorite, hands down, is Taboo. And I actually made this meme from this when I tell the class we're playing Taboo. So you could just make your own silly memes and, include them in your classroom. But Taboo is their favorite. So how it works is I take whatever unit we're studying, and it's very simple prep. This is a screenshot of my Google Slides. So I'll just take the vocabulary and I'll put it, each word or phrase on its own slide. And then what I do is I think of random things. Like you could see, I have Cristiano Ronaldo, a hamburger, a sweater, a computer, and Patrick Starfish, whatever his name is, from SpongeBob. So you just pick like random pop culture things that you think they're going to know. So usually this will be, let's say, like 40 slides long. By the time you get all of your phrases, vocabulary, you can just put people's names on there if you'd like. But it works like Taboo if you've ever played the board game at your home. So you have one student come up to the front of the room. They have their back to, if you have a smart board, you could even do this old school with paper if you needed to, just hold it up on a whiteboard. So the student has their back to the board. Their team has to get them to say the word that's behind them. So for example, if the computer was projected behind me, you would describe it to me like what you use to do classwork, or, Apple or Windows or something like that. And you will be amazed at the language that they come up with to describe these things, because they're going to use their language that they know to get whoever is in the front to guess. So they come up with some really funny things. And what they're doing is they're using their comprehensible output, whatever language that they know, to get the point across. So the two main rules for the class are no English, no hand signals or acting out. And it's hard for them. Some of them have to sit on their hands, but they really get into it. And whoever's up in the front of the room has 1 minute to try to get as many points for their team as they can. I usually do 2 teams. Sometimes they love it so much they don't really even care about the teams. They just want to play. So they'll do it as a class. You know, it depends on your energy with your class and your size of your class. But this is a great one.
If I'm understanding correctly, online, could we play this? And let's say that we tell the kids in a document who's on which team, and then we could send a private message. If we are live and we're in a synchronous class, we could send a private message to a student with the word.
Yes,
and we
exactly.
can have it come up on camera, and you know, the students can try to tell them. I mean, there are ways that we can tweak these activities.
Totally. You can totally, exactly what you said, like a private chat or a personal message to a student where you give them 5 vocabulary words and you say, okay, come on the screen, and you have to get the class to guess these, and the other kids can type in the chat, and the student has to describe to the class. And, you know, they really enjoy that because they see it as a game, but they're really using their language and they just don't realize it. So it is great. I think it's definitely distance learning adaptable. And it's something that'll get them excited and using the language. So definitely give it a try. It's my students' favorite game. They ask for it, like any single unit. They're like, are we playing Taboo? Are we playing Taboo? They love it. And it's really fun, and it's getting them speaking. So it's definitely a nice one to have. Another fun thing you can do is a you describe, I draw. It's very simple. I'm sure you've done it before, where you stand back to back. So you partner up your students and you say, okay, one person's going to face the board, the other person's going to face away. You're going to project an image. The student looking at the image has to describe it in the target language to the student, their partner, who has to draw it. And you give them 5 minutes, and you try, like, this image has so much going on, but it also gives kids a chance. Like, you could use this image in level 2. You could use this image in an IB AP class. It gives a wide range of activity, you know, things that kids could say. So it is really nice because your level 2 kids will say basic things like, it's a kitchen, there's a mom, there are, you know, have 5 kids. They might not necessarily say the kid is climbing on top of the counter, but they'll start to describe the picture in the way that they know how. An IB or AP class might go into like their emotions, and maybe the kid is climbing the counter, he's reaching for something, he's touching this, they're looking at each other, and then they love to compare their picture at the end with the board and see, you know, did they come up with anything close? Again, I think this could be modified for distance learning.
I have some ideas for that if you want me to share it. Okay, so the way I would modify this for distance learning, again, I would reach out to a student or 2 or 3, however many pictures. Let's just say we're just doing 1 picture in a class period. I will reach out privately to a student, and by privately, I mean by email, and I would say, hey, you know, I would like for you to describe this picture to your classmates, and then I would have them online take over the speaking, and I will have that student give the description, and then the students, you know, through the computer can actually draw on their own paper, and then at the end the students can show it and we can talk about it. And you know, you can ask the students to submit it to you through Canvas or Google Classroom or whichever way you want them to submit, and then you can talk about it in the classroom the next day.
Totally. And you could even go like, you know, where you have, let's say you have all your students in Zoom or Google Meet or whatever you use, and you see their faces, right? You can pick 7 of them and say, okay, guys, turn around physically and put your back to the camera. So now you know they're not looking at the screen, and you can project the picture, and the other kids will have to describe as the kid with his back to the camera is drawing. And you know, there are ways to get around it. I think we just, you know, this is tough, and like we said, we're not going to be like this forever. So if we can like find these little adaptations to these activities that'll get them talking and get them, you know, engaged, it would be great. So whatever works for your situation.
Yeah. And you know, maybe right now Engage I mean, we want them to be engaged in the class, mentally invested in the class. But I would say, even if it just gets a smile out of them, I
Exactly.
feel, like that just makes my day. We have a comment from Letty who said, you can even as a teacher say some of the descriptions and see what students draw. Absolutely. You can do that. And that is actually something Claudia and I did in our pre-AP language lab yesterday. But we were the ones talking. So yes, you can definitely do that as the teacher, but you can also, if we want to give the students a chance to use the language, it's an excellent way to reach out to them first. If they're comfortable with it and they want to, we can give them that opportunity to shine as well. Joshua is saying, good to start that way to show how it's done and the type of phrases and language to use. If I guess he's referring to Letty's comment about as a teacher. Yes, so the teacher probably, that's a great idea. The teacher can model the first describe the picture so that the students know what is expected. So that is awesome.
Definitely. And I just thought of another modification you could even do is you could have, like, let's say 4 pictures that you have in a document, a Google Doc or a PDF that you share with your students, and you allow them to choose which one they're going to describe. And their partner has to draw it or has to guess, maybe if they have it in front of them, because choice also helps make them more comfortable. If a student doesn't feel comfortable with the kitchen vocabulary in this picture, and there's a picture next to it with kids playing sports outside, and they know that vocabulary, now there's their time to shine. They can describe it. And, giving them choice, I think, too, is important. So that's another little modification you can make on this in person or even virtually. If you have the 4 or 5 on a screen, one student is describing to the class one of the pictures and the rest of the class has to guess which one and then say, why? What words did he say that made you guess that picture? And you just kind of bring it back. Another fun activity, super quick for you to prep, vocab, write, and speak. So pick 5 words that you're commonly using in your unit or your unit of study. Put them on the board and give them a few minutes to come up with a short story, like short 3 to 4 sentences, super short, quick. And I always try to give a word that's, like, for this one, I put the word problem, right? So the students will now have to craft a story. And if you give them like a little bit of a triggering word like problem, they're going to come up with some really funny things and they're going to want to share it. So I try to give them enough time that they start thinking their ideas, but not enough that they write the whole thing down and then they're just reading it to me. I want to leave a little time where they have to improvise maybe the end, because then it does turn into an actual speaking activity and it's not just a writing and they're reading. So you could have them share with someone near them, with a small group, with a partner. They like to do that and see who has the funniest story or whatever. And then you can ask, who had an interesting story you want to share out with the class? They could share out with the class. Another modification to this is, after I've shared my story about summer fun, friends, vacation, but there was some kind of problem, my partner has to finish it. So I can start the story, and now my partner has to finish the story with the problem was, and then continue it going. So it just makes for some nice, opportunities for them to use the language and to get that output in there. So you can do it right where they write it down, the whole thing, and then they recite it to a partner. Or, like I said, give them a chance to start organizing their ideas, but maybe just not enough time to finish so that they have to speak a little bit spontaneously. So that's a fun one. They like to do that as long as you make the vocabulary fun for that. Give them some kind of triggering word. You could put a famous person in there that's totally random. You could put, in my IB class before we read como agua para chocolate, I pulled a couple of key words. So one of the expressions I used was forbidden love. And then I had the word sisters, right? And so they came up with these crazy stories oh my gosh, and then the sisters, and they were inventing whatever they thought, would go with this story. And they were so excited to share it and so excited to keep talking about it. It really is a nice jumping off point for conversation.
Absolutely. I agree with, we work with the target structures that are comprehensible to our students, add the new targets we want them to acquire, and then make sure that as we are elaborating on those words we want them to acquire or target phrases, we make it compelling. And that's just key for their learning, because then they don't realize when it's compelling for them, they don't realize they're learning. They forget about the fact that this is Spanish class. So
it's fun. When it's fun and they get into it, they don't realize like, oh, I'm in class doing an assignment. They're just telling a story. So it becomes fun. Totally. And then the last one I have is talk it up. So sometimes just a fun way to start class is give them some kind of prompt. And again, most important thing is to give them a little bit of processing time. So whatever level you have, it could be a sentence starter, it could be a question, it could be a situation, like in New York, we have it used to be the Regents, but now we have like a local exam. So part of that local exam is they have to have these conversations like, you're lost in the community, ask me for a direction, and they're so hard to get into natural teaching sometimes where you want to build it up into like a spontaneous conversation. So having it as part of a do now is a really nice place to give them time to practice. And it's a little bit more natural. So like your best friend just lost their cell phone. What can you do? And you say, okay, student A, student B, turn to each other, discuss the problem, and you give them a time. Take 3 minutes and talk and try to come up with something. And then you can come back as a class. Who would like to share? Who has a good solution? Why do you think that's a good idea? And it just starts to build up into a more natural conversation. So these are nice to have. Like I like to, in the beginning of the year, create like a Google Slides with just a bunch of prompts, or you could even do it with like an actual box or like a basket in your room with prompts that are ready to go for any time. Anytime you've got 5 extra minutes. It could be the beginning of class. Like let's say you're like, oh no, I need 5 minutes at the beginning of class to open up all my things. I'm running in from another room. This is a great thing to give your students, to give them an opportunity to start their class, start their brains while you finish setting up. Or let's say your lesson ends 5 minutes earlier than you thought it would. This is a great thing to pull out. Okay, we're going to do, something from you could call it like a caja de problemas, like your problem box or your situation box, whatever it is. So just by giving them these little sentence starters and again, level appropriate, like you won't believe this, but wouldn't be for a level 1 or a level 2, but you might be able to do that in an IB class. Or I'm so happy that, again, they have to finish the sentence. It could be anything. And it gives them support. You're starting the sentence for them. You're starting their thought, but they have to fill it in.
I love the idea of having, and these saying very Regents friendly. I love the idea of having it prepped at the beginning of the year. So if we were back in the classroom, you know how early lang teachers like to have the little buckets with the popsicle sticks.
Yep.
Mm-hmm. And, this is something you could totally have a student, you can print it on paper and you can have a student write it on the popsicle sticks. But if you're not going back to the classroom, just having it on a document or, making a PowerPoint with a couple of these, and you can just, throw them at the students when you have the time to do so, or if you want to do it one day with the class, it sounds like a pretty amazing and also very engaging task for the students to do.
It is. And even this, like, how could we, now let's think of our current situation. How can we modify this for distance learning, right? You could have a bunch of these prepped. And this could be a great way to start your class because, once the kids get logged onto the computer, now we got to turn that Spanish or whatever language you teach brain on. They need that little bit of informal conversation in the beginning to warm them up and get them going. You can't just come in and hit them with like something, that's really heavy. They need time to warm up and process. So something like this, if you start your class off with it and you throw it up on your Google slide, your whatever shared screen that you have, and you say, okay, guys, we have a 3-minute timer. I want you to think about this prompt and come back to me with an idea. And then you can start the class. Who wants to share? If no one wants to share, call on someone. All right, what's your favorite time of year? That's any, level 1, let's say. Okay, somebody says summer. Why? Why do you like summer? Or do you like swimming? Do you like going to the beach? You know, you can start to turn it into a conversation and build it up, which is really nice, because when we have these embedded conversations in our class, they don't realize they're using the target language. They think you're just talking to them about, you know, oh, we talked about summer today in class, has nothing to do with what we're studying, but they're using the target language. So,
and that's what we want to hear. Yep.
Exactly. So that's just, you know, something you can have, something you can prep ahead of time. And we could use it in any situation. You could prep a Google Slides, you know, 25 of these this summer, whether you're going to be in person, whether you're going to be blended, whether you're going to be virtual, you can use it. So that's like, for me, these are the things I like to have, because I'm like, okay, no matter what, I'm going to use it. So something like this is really fun, and they enjoy it. And you really get to hear some great things. You know, kids will share some funny, interesting things, and then that builds your classroom community. You know, the inside little jokes that you have. When one of them, I had a kid one year who would tell these ridiculous stories about how a squirrel got loose in his house and his mom had to chase, and like, but every kid, they came in and they always wanted to hear that story. And it was like, that was our classroom community. No other class period had that same vibe. And it was nice. And it built, these little things build that. So it's a great, you know, that's what's so great about our job. We get to interact with the kids. And, you know, that's why I love language teaching. We learn a little bit about everything. You know, we're not just like, we're teaching grammar, we're teaching structures, we're learning about them as people, and we're really lucky we get to do that through.
I know we are so. I mean, what other? I don't know. Maybe there are other subjects, I'm certain, but not everyone has the honor to be able to get to know their students and build stronger relationships through the subject they teach.
Totally. I mean, we get to learn about family, friends, what they do in their free time. What are you doing this weekend? What did you do last weekend? You know, what's your favorite movie? What are you watching on Netflix? I mean, we know so much about our students, and it's through little conversations like that we get that buy-in, and they want to show up for you and they want to talk to you in the target language, because these things show that you care.
I want to highlight some comments, if that's okay with you, Christina.
Sure, please.
So we have Joshua, top contributor today, to make sure that language acquirers pay attention to the input. It should be interesting. It might be the case that input needs to be not just interesting, but compelling. Absolutely. I remember on February when Dr. Crashen came to my school, he talked about optimal input, and for it to be relevant, compelling, not really following a grammatical agenda. And you know, it was just going to take the students and definitely captivate the students, lower their affective filter again, because that's what we need for the acquisition to happen. I'll actually link a video that it's on YouTube about him talking about optimal input, because I know we hear all about comprehensible input, but I really love the way he presented it as optimal input, which, you know, it's not comprehensible inputs competition or anything by any means. I'm not trying to say that. So just want to clarify. Then we have a Facebook user who says, I use the chat mat provided by Meredith White. It is awesome. Yes, Meredith is so amazing. She shares so many resources, and, you know, the stuff she makes is incredible. So we have Madeline who says, oh, thank you, Madeline. We're so great for bringing all of you guys together to learn. Appreciative for sharing it this way. And it gives us ideas, and we get pumped for the new school year. And you know what? Getting pumped for the new school year for some people, it is difficult today. And, you know, I'm not saying that, you know, to put those people down. I mean, absolutely, I totally understand why, you know, some people, it's difficult for them to focus on the upcoming school year. But I'm glad it's bringing you some light, Madeline. And by all means, you know, when we present these ideas, and I always like to say this at some point in the presentation, maybe not everything is going to fit your style and your situation and the students that you teach and your circumstances and everything that admins impose on you. Maybe, you know, some things are not going to work. But if you can walk out of every single session on Wednesday, you know, with one or two ideas, I think that is a winning for us to, you know, continue to come together to learn.
Totally. We're in it together, right? And if we can all share one or two ideas that we can turn around and use, and it's successful in our classes, that's a win. You know, so yeah, that's the beautiful part about our profession also, that we really do get to continue to grow as professionals. And, you know, we're lucky that we have places like this where we can come and learn. So thanks to you for giving us these opportunities, because
Oh, no
it's great.
problem. And on that note, I know that many of you are part of my friend Claudia Elliott's Growing with CI Facebook group, which is another amazing Facebook group. And she also hosts professional learning sessions in her group. And we work together, Claudia and Christina and myself and Lisa, and we collaborate with everybody because we're open to collaboration. That's how we become stronger, and that's how we can get through all these hard times. And also, I want to invite you to join Christina's Facebook community as well. So I will put the link on the comments so you can join her Facebook community, so you can ask her questions about the activities she presented today. And I know that Christina also is working on a special project, right, Christina?
Yeah.
And, you know, I just want to give her the opportunity to talk to you about her special project for, you know, a couple of minutes. So,
Thank you so much.
and before I turn it over to her on that, I want to remind you that you can watch the replays two ways. You can scroll through this Facebook group, and all the replays for all the past PD and this one, you'll find it throughout the Facebook group. The second part, way that you can get this PDs are through signing up to my email list, and then you can actually get the copy of the video and share it with your admin if you want to. So the link is also on the box. So I'm going to let Christina tell you a little bit about her project, and then I will put the links in here so that you guys can connect with her, join her group, and check out her project if you're interested.
Thank you. Yeah. So, like I said, I love to connect with everyone. I'm active on Instagram at Super Senora. I have a blog, and that's my email. So if you ever go to try something and you're not sure, I'm more than happy to help and, you know, point you in the right direction and try to troubleshoot so that it is successful for you. Because, you know, when you try something new, sometimes it doesn't always go perfectly the first time, but don't give up. So if anything you want to try today, you go and try it, and you're having a problem, reach out to me. I'd love to help you. But as I said in the beginning, I'm so passionate about helping teachers help their students to speak target language. And, you know, I love to do these presentations. I'm a total professional development nerd. Like, I love to learn. I love to continue learning. And I'm so passionate about this topic that I started to put together a digital course. So I have a course that I'm finishing up for August because, you know, nothing else going on right now in the world, like so much extra time. I have 2 little babies at home, so I have a lot going on all day, but hey, why not, right? So I have this course that is called Engage with Output, and it's truly a passion project for me. I go through, you know, how to set up your class for success, your mindset, how you can start off the school year, just setting up your students and yourself to be successful in getting them to produce the target language in your class. I'll give you a bunch of activities with templates that you can turn around and make your own. I really want it to be a place where we can learn how to just continue to support our students on their journey and be their ally for, you know, eventually speaking the language, because there's nothing better than a student coming back to you after they've graduated and saying, I studied abroad, or I'm minoring or majoring in Spanish. I mean, that is just like so heartwarming. I have a student who I went on maternity leave last year. She actually was my maternity leave replacement as a Spanish teacher for me. And that was like my proudest moment in education, that it came full circle. I had her in 9th grade, I had her in 11th grade. And then there she was taking over my class for me when I went on maternity leave. So, you know, it's really just, it's amazing. So if you're interested in this, Berta's going to share with you the link. Just starting a waiting list right now. Like I said, August 11th, I'm going to be putting this up. It's going to go live. And with that, it's going to come some Facebook support, some live coaching from me in a group coaching, 2 group coaching calls. And I also am adding a bonus for engaging your students during distance learning. So with specific things that you can do, strategies, tips, activities that you can do in your distance learning style class, blended classroom to be successful with getting your students, giving them opportunities to speak the language. So thank you so much for having me.
Thank you so much, Christina. I want to close with highlighting Norma's comment. She said she's not sure why the name is not showing up, but she wants to thank both of us for sharing wisdom and knowledge with the teaching community, and she thinks our group is amazing. I think so too. I love all of you guys for joining me on Wednesday during your summer. I mean, you guys are, like we always say, rock stars. I mean, we are rock stars, and we're totally, you know, these are difficult times, but I know that together, I really believe in the power of just togetherness and how we can strengthen and build each other up. And through collaboration, we are going to thrive no matter what. No matter what. So I'm really glad that you guys made it here. I know we have more stuff coming next week. Either Claudia and I are going to be here, and we might have a bonus session next week. I'm not quite sure, but I'll let you know that. But I know for sure Claudia, Elliot, and I are going to be having a chat over here. And the week after that, we are going to have Heidi Trude, who's going to come to talk to us about a program she uses to invite guest speakers from different target places where target language is spoken, not just Spanish. And so I have something for my French teachers and everyone else, German teachers, Chinese teachers. We'll have some of that here too at the end of the month. And I'm really excited because I'm very big on community and bringing the community to my classroom. But I know with the current situation, that's kind of hard to envision at the moment. But Heidi is going to give us some ideas, and she's going to share some template with us. And I'm really excited for all the PD we have coming up for the rest of July. Thank you so much, Christina. We appreciate all of your ideas. And as soon as I am done talking to Christina, I will upload the materials to both the group and also to the document that has all of the presentations from June and July. And if you want to have access to that document, please make sure you join my waiting list that says Catch the Facebook Lives, because that document actually has the links. So if you want to share it with your administration, with your team, you can actually get the YouTube link to that and share it with them. Okay?
That's amazing. That's so generous of you. I appreciate that. Thank you.
So I'm really glad that we're able to come here and, you know, serve you. And I hope you have a great week. And until next time, you know, let's stay positive. Even though it's difficult sometimes and different things might hit us from time to time. We're human and everything. But we are going to get through this, and we totally got each other's back. So
we're in it together.
Yes. Take care.